Am I the antagonist for making my in-laws take their shoes off in my house? Some background. My 38-year-old female husband, 37-year-old male, and I have been living in my in-laws' house for the past 10 years, ever since they moved. Around 5 years ago, their house burned down in the fires in California, so they had to move back in with us. While we lived together mostly harmoniously, things changed when I got pregnant 2 years ago. My husband and I decided to purchase the house from my in-laws and planned to renovate it, including new floors and a kitchen. I informed my in-laws beforehand that there would be some changes in cleanliness, such as not wearing shoes in the house, especially since we were expecting a baby. I repeatedly communicated this for a year so they were aware. However, my father-in-law, Phil, adamantly refused to remove his shoes in the house. Despite my multiple requests, he did not comply. In an effort to accommodate him, I provided him with blue booties to wear inside, but he refused those as well. Instead, he started purposefully stomping loudly as he walked through the house, disturbing my son's sleep. One day, fed up with his behavior, I called him and asked politely why he wouldn't take his shoes off. His response was, "I do take my shoes off when I get to my bedroom because that's what normal people do, and that's the way it's going to be." This infuriated me, and I confronted him, expressing my disregard for what normal people do in their own homes. I emphasized that this house was no longer his, and we didn't want his dirty shoes on our new floors where our son would be playing. He reiterated his stance, and that's when I told him he was no longer welcome in my house unless he could respect my boundaries like an adult. At that point, my in-laws had already found a new place and were planning to move out in a few months. Despite this, my Phil threw a fit and informed everyone that I kicked him out. Now, with the exception of my husband, who shares my aversion to shoes in the house, everyone is angry at me, believing I took things too far and overreacted. They say I am causing a rift between my husband and his dad. Personally, I believe the only person responsible for the rift is my Phil, because he refused to acknowledge the rule. He has not returned to my house since. So, am I the asshole? You clearly communicated your expectations about no shoes in the house to your in-laws multiple times, and your father-in-law refused to comply. It is your house now, and you have the right to set boundaries for what happens inside. Your father-in-law's behavior of stomping loudly and intentionally waking up your son was disrespectful and immature. You were justified in getting upset and asserting your boundaries. It's unfortunate that others are not seeing your perspective and instead blaming you for causing a rift. Am I the antagonist for making my sister-in-law leave after she came to help when I give birth to my third child? Am I the asshole for making my sister-in-law leave after she came to help when I give birth to my third child? I, 31 years old, female, am about to give birth to our third child in 2 days. My husband asked his sister, who lives in a different city, to come and help take care of our other 2 kids while we go to have our baby. When he told me she was coming, I was appreciative as I thought it would only be for 3 weeks. However, I later found out that she will be staying for 3 months, which I am not happy about. I don't want a full-time visitor for that long, especially with a new baby. I expressed my concerns, but it was too late to change anything as she was already coming. When she arrived, everything seemed great, but then she brought along her daughter, 12, who lives full-time in the same city as us with her dad. This was never part of the agreement or plan. Now our household has doubled in chaos as we prepare for the baby and deal with renovations. We only have 1 bathroom right now, which is right next to our room, so whenever someone goes upstairs to use it, our dogs bark or someone gets woken up. This is obviously annoying with the extra people here. And on top of that, we are woken up multiple times a night. We also have 2 school-aged kids trying to get ready in the mornings, which was never discussed with me. My husband also told his sister that she will be responsible for all school drop-offs and pickups for our son without consulting me. I am a stay-at-home mom. They have been discussing what she will be doing to help without asking me what I need. My husband and I ended up having a big argument about it because our house is now overcrowded, and it feels like nobody cares about the fact that I am about to give birth. I am incredibly stressed, tired of hosting, unable to find anything she puts away, and we are all waiting for the bathroom. I'm being told that I need help with tasks that I usually handle perfectly fine on my own. The only help I agreed to was having her watch our older kids, ages 3 and 8, while I give birth. The next day, she avoids me completely and stays in the basement all afternoon. She only talks to my husband and our kids. So now, in addition to all the other stress, I am being treated like the bad guy and feeling even more awkward. When I confront my husband about this, it leads to another argument, and he brings his sister in to talk, even though I didn't want that because now I'm caught in the middle. She tells me that she doesn't get to be a mom, so she's trying to be a mom to her daughter, now here with us. Side note, she chooses to work out of town and could be here if she wanted to. I told her that her personal situation is not my problem, and my only concern right now is having the baby and being comfortable in my own home, since I didn't ask for any of this help. She then tells me that if I don't want her help, she will leave tomorrow. I didn't argue with her decision to leave. If she was so determined to help me, why did she discuss everything with my husband instead of asking me what I needed? Am I the asshole in this situation? It's understandable that you feel overwhelmed and stressed with all the unexpected changes and lack of communication regarding your sister-in-law's stay. Your concerns about having a full-time visitor for 3 months, especially after just giving birth, are valid. It's important for your husband and sister-in-law to respect your needs and involve you in the decision-making process. While it may be disappointing for your sister-in-law, it's ultimately up to you to decide what kind of help you're comfortable with during this time. Am I the antagonist for not caring about making my roommate's mother uncomfortable? My girlfriend, 28-year-old male, and I, 26-year-old female, live in a 2-bedroom apartment. We stay in the larger bedroom and sublet the other one. Since July, we have had a new roommate, a 20-year-old female university student named Emma. I must admit, I don't particularly like Emma. However, I still treat her fairly and try not to let it affect our interactions, although this might be my blind spot in this whole situation. Since mid-September, I've been working temporarily in a town that is over 3 hours away from us by car. Due to the distance, my employer is providing accommodation on site. I come back home on Friday evening and then return on Sunday evening. This work arrangement is expected to continue until the end of October, after which I will resume my regular employment. To be honest, I feel quite lonely. There isn't much to do here outside of work, and the work itself is frustrating because I receive little support from my home company. Additionally, I get blamed by the people here for things that go wrong or take too long. The only bright spot in my week is coming back home to my girlfriend. I mention this because I believe it's relevant. Anyway, Emma recently asked us if her mom could visit her for a few days starting tomorrow. We told her that if it's just a few days, it wouldn't be a problem. However, Emma later approached my girlfriend and asked her to ask me not to come home this weekend. Apparently, Emma grew up in a conservative household, and her mom wouldn't be pleased to learn that Emma shares an apartment with a man. Furthermore, her mom would be incredibly uncomfortable hearing or seeing any affectionate behavior between me and my girlfriend. My girlfriend informed Emma that she doesn't think her request is reasonable, but that Emma should ask me directly. So Emma approached me, and I told her that this is also my apartment. And I don't find her request reasonable either. It wouldn't be an issue for us to engage in intimate activities when Emma and her mom are out in the city, but I disagree with not coming home at all. Additionally, if having a male roommate was such an issue for her, she should have found a different apartment. At first, Emma accepted our response, but as her mom's visit approaches, she seems to have changed her mind. She's been texting me since yesterday, claiming that I will get her into trouble and that it's just one weekend. I had a conversation with my girlfriend, and she mentioned that Emma appears to be very tense and is becoming defensive. We briefly considered letting her have this weekend to maintain peace, but we ultimately decided to stick to our usual routine. It's the 21st century, and Emma's mother should adapt to modern times. So, does this make us the assholes? You have already compromised by allowing Emma's mother to visit for a few days, and it is not reasonable for Emma to ask you to not come home at all. Emma should have considered her living situation and any potential conflicts it may bring before choosing to sublet with you and your girlfriend. Additionally, it is not your responsibility to accommodate Emma's conservative upbringing or her discomfort with your relationship. It is the 21st century and social norms have evolved. While it is understandable that Emma may feel stressed or anxious about her mother's visit, her lashing out at you and blaming you for potentially getting her into trouble is unfair. It is important for her to take responsibility for her own choices and communicate her concerns in a respectful manner. Ultimately, you and your girlfriend are entitled to maintain your regular routine and the comfort of your own home. It is up to Emma to find alternative solutions for her situation if it is truly causing her distress. Am I the antagonist for telling my coworker to leave me alone after my baby shower? I, 31-year-old female, am 32 weeks pregnant with my husband's and my first child. I've been co-workers friends with Claire, 36-year-old female, since I joined the company 5 years ago. We've always been quite close, but I've been getting increasingly annoyed with her while I've been pregnant, and it all came to blows at my baby shower last week. For some backstory, Claire has struggled with fertility for years. She suffered from pregnancy loss a few years ago and tried in vitro fertilization, but that failed, which led to the end of her marriage. I was supportive throughout and tried to be there for her as much as I could. Everything was okay between us until Claire found out I was pregnant. From the moment she found out, she's become slightly obsessed. She touches my belly constantly, begging to feel the baby kick, and always asks how our baby is. I hate this, and have made a point to say I don't like people touching my stomach apart from my husband. Claire, in turn, always tells people I don't like anyone touching my stomach apart from family, which she claims includes her. Edit. I told Claire that I didn't like anyone but my husband touching my stomach. She chose to ignore it. There's been other issues, but the main issue arose when I had my baby shower last week. My mom and mother-in-law organized the whole thing, but apparently both were bombarded with messages from Claire because she knew exactly what I wanted. She kind of took over the shower and made sure she was seated next to me for the entire thing. While I was opening gifts, Claire burst into tears, saying how many of the gifts were items she would have received at her own showers if she hadn't had her miscarriages. In the end, she had to be comforted by several guests. After the shower, I called her up and said that I think she needs to take a step back, and I'm worried this is too much for her. Claire quickly fired back, saying that she was fine and that the baby needed Auntie Claire. Finally, I'd had enough and said that I really needed her to back off as she wasn't family, and I felt like I was being suffocated. Ever since then, numerous coworkers have said that I need to apologize to Claire and that I was an asshole for being so harsh with her. So am I the asshole? While it's unfortunate that she has struggled with fertility and pregnancy loss, it doesn't give her the right to push boundaries and invade your personal space. You have made it clear to her that you are not comfortable with people touching your belly, but she has chosen to ignore your boundaries and even spread misinformation about your preferences. This shows a lack of respect for your feelings and needs as the mother of your baby. Additionally, Claire taking over your baby shower and making it about her past losses was inappropriate and manipulative. It was your special day, and she should have respected that and allowed you to enjoy the celebrations without hijacking the attention. You did the right thing by calling her and expressing your concerns. You were not harsh but honest about how her behavior was making you feel suffocated. It's important for her to understand that she is not entitled to insert herself into your family dynamics. The fact that coworkers are pressuring you to apologize is unfair, as they may not fully understand the extent of her behavior and the toll it has taken on you. However, considering the persistent nature of the situation and the potential impact on your workplace environment, it might also be a good idea to involve HR if the coworkers continue to hound you about this issue. Remember, it's essential for your mental and emotional well-being, as well as the well-being of your growing family, that you set and enforce proper boundaries. Am I the antagonist for telling the state my ex stopped paying CS and now they are suing him? I feel like I'm not doing anything wrong here, but I am also an extreme people pleaser and feel guilty anyway. My divorce was finalized in January of 2022. We have joint custody, but he is scheduled to take the kids every other weekend and some holidays. He's actually only taken them about 17 nights this year. But due to a complicated work-home situation for him and his husband, he has been staying at my house during the week, with me there too, for a while now. He rarely ever takes the kids on weekends unless I flat out tell him I need a break. Can you please take X this weekend? Even then, it's 50-50 it's on if he will or not. A popular excuse is, well, Tim and I need a break and are going to X place, so I can't. For context, they live with my ex's mother, and she is a nightmare most times. Currently, the kids receive insurance through the state because I do not make much. When child support was decided, my ex was working a regular job with insurance and making like $24 an hour. Now he works for an individual, doing maintenance making maybe $20 an hour. Tim, his husband, does not work right now because of medical issues. Before the divorce was finalized, we were separated and he and Tim were paying support for the kids, no issue. At the time, I told the judge this, so he did not order it to be withheld from his paychecks, since he had proof he was paying me monthly directly. He has not paid regularly since. The state became aware of this during our yearly review for their insurance. The state has now taken over in collecting payments. He does not think this is fair, because they are living off just his income now, and he sees the kids a lot, but does not ever take them on his time. I told him to file for an adjustment since he makes less, and he still has not done that. I feel bad, but he still makes more than I do, and I have to pay electric/water/everything except rent where I live. He and Tim have their own bills, but the electric/water/whatever where they live are all on his mother's name. I assume they help pay, but I don't know. He recently said child support shouldn't matter because the kids have what they need. Yeah, because I work 2 jobs now. He thinks I am an asshole because I let the state know he wasn't paying anymore and now they are suing him. What do you think? You are not doing anything wrong by reporting your ex for non-payment. Child support is meant to ensure that both parents contribute to the upbringing of their children, and it is his responsibility to fulfill his financial obligations. It is understandable that you are struggling financially and that you work 2 jobs to support your children, while he and his husband have their own expenses to manage. The fact that he rarely takes the children on his scheduled weekends and makes excuses when you ask for a break also raises concerns about his commitment as a parent. It is fair for the state to step in and collect the overdue child support payments. If your ex believes that his financial situation has changed and he is unable to fulfill his obligations, he should file for an adjustment as you suggested. However, it is not your responsibility to make excuses for his non-payment or to bear all the financial burden on your own. Being a people pleaser and feeling guilty about reporting your ex is understandable, but ultimately, you are advocating for the well-being and security of your children. Taking action to ensure that they receive the financial support they are entitled to is not an asshole move. Am I the antagonist for wanting ILs to help pay for my their daughter's funeral? I, 47-year-old male, lost my wife, 42-year-old female, a week ago after an 18-month battle with cancer. She was diagnosed in May 2022. We tried 4 different chemotherapy treatments without success. The doctors attempted to get her into clinical trials but were unsuccessful. 5 weeks ago, she entered hospice care. They visited our house every day for a week, working to make her as comfortable as possible. 4 weeks ago, she stayed at their facility for 4 days while they adjusted her medication. Her sister and nieces drove 10 hours to visit the weekend after she was discharged. Throughout their visit, they did not realize how sick she truly was. The following weekend, she returned to the hospice facility. She experienced significant pain and vomiting. From the next Monday until her passing on Friday, her parents visited her multiple times each day. After seeing her, they would stop by the house to check on me. I have been physically disabled for the past 2.5 years. My mother has been staying with us to assist in taking care of me and driving me to all my appointments. The weekend my wife went to hospice, my mom had gone back to her own home. I had no means of visiting my wife until my mom returned on Thursday. The in-laws never offered to take me to see her while my mom was away. I saw my wife on Thursday and again on Friday. A couple of hours after we left, she passed away. Her parents had been there in the meantime and had taken all of her personal belongings. I eventually retrieved them, but her laptop is still missing. The day before, on Thursday when she was still alive, I received a text from my mother-in-law, outlining everyone's responsibilities. Mother-in-law was in charge of writing the obituary. My sister-in-law was planning the service with a pastor I have never met, although he had spoken with my wife during her time in the hospital and hospice, and I was responsible for paying the funeral home, chosen by mother-in-law. I have been occupied with other matters, so I had my mom speak to my in-laws to gather family history for the death certificate and inquire about their contribution to the funeral home expenses. Following that phone call on Monday, I received a text from mother-in-law asking me to stop requesting money from them. They claimed to have none, as they wanted to remember all the things we did together. Whenever we went out, such as eating at restaurants or attending sporting events, we always covered the costs. My in-laws believe that now that she has passed, she is in heaven, so they have no interest in her ashes. My wife did express her desire to be cremated. I am beginning to doubt whether they even want the ashes at the service. Additionally, they believe that since the funeral home isn't assisting with the service, it shouldn't be too costly and the pastor should cover the expenses. Am I the asshole for expecting them to contribute to my wife's funeral expenses? I have never known someone to plan a funeral without input from the surviving spouse, nor have I heard of a pastor covering the costs of a service. Losing a spouse is an incredibly difficult and emotionally challenging experience, and it is understandable that you would want support from your in-laws in arranging your wife's funeral. It is not unreasonable to expect some financial contribution from them, especially if you have been the one covering expenses in the past. Furthermore, their lack of involvement and seeming indifference towards your wife's ashes is hurtful and dismissive. You have the right to feel upset and to express your feelings to them. It would be helpful to have an open and honest conversation with your in-laws about your expectations and feelings. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.